Hello, everyone. Now, as you know, Michael Jordan fans are the worst sports fans of all time. Now, have you ever wondered why are they the way they are? What happened to them? Why are they zombies? And things like that. Well, I'm going to explain to you some of the reasons. Here they are, in no particular order. Lots of people really like famous people, and Michael Jordan is one of the most famous people on the planet. Lots of people really like rich people, and Michael Jordan is one of the richest people on the planet. Lots of people really like the sports stars from their time, and Michael Jordan was the most famous sports star from the time of some of the Michael Jordan fans. Basketball is one of the most popular sports in America and in the world. The NBA is one of the most popular sports leagues in America and in the world. Michael Jordan was the most famous NBA player when he was in the NBA. Michael Jordan was one of the best NBA players when he was in the NBA. Michael Jordan was considered by some as the number one NBA player when he was in the NBA. And Michael Jordan is considered by some as the number one NBA player of all time. Michael Jordan is considered a very good looking guy. Michael Jordan was a clean cut guy. He didn't have that much facial hair. He shaved his head. And he didn't show that much hair on his body. At the time, Michael Jordan was known as a fashionable guy. In interviews, he usually came off as smart, articulate, nice, and professional. In interviews, he usually did not come off as racist, prejudiced, hateful, and emotional. In interviews, he usually was not threatening to white people. He usually did not come off as someone who was against white people, or was about black power, or was anti-American, or was wanting everyone to know about his politics. He did that thing where sometimes he would act like the stereotypical black guy when the camera was off, and then act like the stereotypical white guy when the camera was on. He has a name that some Americans will take as simple, likable, relatable, and popular. Michael Jordan. He has a name that some Americans might take as a leader type of name. Michael Jordan. He has a name that some Americans will take as a likable name. Michael Jordan. He has a name that some companies might take as a marketable name if they want to sell something to the American people. Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan made sure that there weren't that many things that lots of people could criticize him for. The NBA is known as a league that usually tries to make things easier for their stars in the NBA. So what do you think is going to happen when they have the number one NBA star in the NBA? Michael Jordan. They made it easier for him to do well, and when he does well, more people might be into him. The NBA is known as a league that does not take reliable statistics. They do things to elevate their stars. So what do you think is going to happen when they have the number one NBA star, Michael Jordan? So when he has nice statistics, more people might be into him. The NBA marketed Michael Jordan really well. They marketed him more than any other NBA star who has ever been in the NBA. The NBA sometimes did a good job of not marketing the past NBA. Other companies did a really good job of pushing Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan sometimes did things that were really popular with the culture of America and the culture of some other nations. For example, Nike, McDonald's, a movie, Bugs Bunny, TV programs, Wheaties, baseball, hot dogs, Oprah Winfrey, commercials, newspapers, magazines, stylish clothing, cologne. And there are more examples, but you get the point. The media is part of it. Sometimes when a player is doing really well, they compare that player to Michael Jordan. And they usually put Michael Jordan as the number one NBA player of all time. The media sometimes makes it seem like no other NBA era is as good as Michael Jordan's era. The media has been influencing people for over 30 years that Michael Jordan is the number one NBA player of all time. The media says things like, Michael Jordan is the number one NBA player of all time, and even in the future, he will always be the number one NBA player of all time. They act like there's no doubt that Michael Jordan is the number one NBA player of all time. And they make it seem like there is Michael Jordan, and then there is everybody else. He was born in New York. That will get lots of fans. He was born in Brooklyn, New York. That will get lots of fans. He was raised in North Carolina, which does not have as many stars as compared to some of the other states. That will get fans from North Carolina to be more into him. He was raised in North Carolina, which does not have as many NBA stars as compared to some of the other states. That will get people from North Carolina Carolina to be more into him. He was raised in North Carolina, which is a state that is considered as part of the so-called real America. That will get people from North Carolina to be more into him, and some of the surrounding states will have people who are into him. He played for a big city like Chicago. That will get lots of fans. And you know how lots of major cities have teams where lots of people from another city are rooting for them and against them? Well, Chicago at that time probably had less people who were from another city that were rooting against them compared to other major cities like New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and so on. Chicago is also a place that is considered part of the so-called real America. Lots of people in the rest of the state will root for the Chicago Bulls, and lots of people in the surrounding states will root for the Chicago Bulls. Chicago is in a state that does not have that many championships, so the people in the state will be more into the Chicago Bulls. The state will root for the Chicago Bulls, and lots of people in the surrounding states will root for the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls were a franchise that did not have that many stars come from college. That will get lots of fans. He was a guy who was known as a scorer. He scored lots of points. He looked good when it came to how he scored, and he also did other things as a player. He was also a guy who dunked, and he dunked a lot. He had nice dunks. He looked good while he dunked, and he dunked on people. He also won the dunk contest. He also won the dunk contest twice. He also won 2 dunk contests that people really liked. He also won a close dunk contest. He also won a dunk contest in Chicago, and he won the dunk contest in the same city that had the team that he played for. When he did dunks, people thought his dunks looked better compared to some other people. Lots of people voted for him to win lots of awards. He has a height and weight that was appealing to lots of fans. He has a height and weight that lots of fans could relate to. He has a height and weight that lots of companies thought was good for marketing. Max Kellerman has basically made the point that Michael Jordan has the perfect height and weight. He played in the NBA at a time when the NBA was getting more popular in America. He played at a time when the NBA was getting more popular in the world. He played at a time when ESPN was getting popular. He played at a time when cable was getting more popular. He played at a time when highlights were getting more popular. The media kept showing lots of his highlights. The NBA changed rules to make it easier for him. The NBA changed rules to make scoring easier. The NBA changed rules to make it easier for the smaller guy. The NBA changed rules to make it harder for the bigger guy. The NBA changed rules to make it tougher for teams on defense. The NBA changed rules to make the game less physical. The NBA made sure that the referees treated Michael Jordan differently compared to the other stars. Some people in the media started saying things like, Michael Jordan was the best NBA player of all time. Lots of the NBA legends started to get injured or get older or retire or just were not the same. Some of the young stars did not make it in the NBA. The NBA kept adding new teams, which made the quality of the NBA go down. Michael Jordan was on a team that won the championship, and his team beat the Los Angeles Lakers. Then he was on a team that won another championship. Then he was part of the Olympic team, and they won the gold medal. Then he was on a third team that won the championship. Then he retired in his prime. Then he went to go play baseball. Then he came back in his prime, and he did well. And people use that as another reason as to why he is the number 1 NBA player in the NBA and why he is the number 1 NBA player of all time. Then his team won in the first round. Then his team lost in the second round. But as time passed, they did not show that tape too much. Around this time, the internet got really popular. Then he was on a team that passed the Los Angeles Lakers record of having the most wins in a season, and they won 72 games. And in that same year, the team won a championship. Then he was on a team that won another championship. Then he was on a team that won another championship. Then he retired in his prime. ESPN had a program that was about the best athletes of the entire 20th century, and they ranked Michael Jordan as the number 1 athlete of the entire 20th century. Then he came back as an older player, and he came back to a generation that may have been considered by some as a different generation. And he came back in a new century, and he played for a new team, and he did well, and he played for 2 seasons. Then he retired, and he made it seem like that you never know, he might come back in the future. The internet kept showing so many things about him. Lots of other places in the media kept showing things about him. Lots of other companies kept advertising things that were about him, and the NBA kept marketing him. The media kept acting like he was the number 1 NBA player of all time. They made it seem like there is no doubt that he is the number 1 NBA player of all time. They made it seem like it is a joke if he is not the number 1 NBA player of all time. At some point, Nike gets onto NBA jerseys. At some point, the Jumpman logo gets onto NBA jerseys. At some point, ESPN starts to have so many people who pick Michael Jordan as the number one NBA player of all time. Fox Sports does also. TNT does also. And pretty much every media place has so many people who pick Michael Jordan as the number one NBA player of all time. The majority of the people in the media pick Michael Jordan as the number one NBA player of all time. ESPN and other places start to have so many programs that have topics that have to do with Michael Jordan. YouTube is a place where you can find so many things that show Michael Jordan in a good way. The Last Dance came out, and that helped lots of people get into Michael Jordan. It helped younger fans get into Michael Jordan. It helped remind people how much they like Michael Jordan, and some people who did not pick Michael Jordan as the number one NBA player of all time picked him as the number one NBA player of all time after they saw The Last Dance. Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, Skip Bayless, and a bunch of other people have really brainwashed a lot of people about Michael Jordan. Basically, for over 30 years, the media has said that Michael Jordan is the number one NBA player of all time. When you have a mass media telling a mass population something for over 30 years, then lots of people might start to agree. Hey, please subscribe, and if you disagree with me on something, you can go on my program and show me your facts on whatever you disagree on. If you want to go on, let's set it up. Send me an email. The email is right there in the description section. Thank you.